Hi, I'm Nikki Dean. I'm so excited to share with you a little bit about the Adaptiv system. And this has been a life-changing oil for so many people that I know. And in our house, we're using it right now too. So if you don't know about Adaptiv, it is the calming blend. So you use this for any kind of emotional imbalance and finding a bit more steadiness. It has wild orange, lavender, copaiba, spearmint, magnolia, rosemary, neroli, and sweet gum all in there. And one thing to note here, we've got it, you can get each of these individually. You can do the roller touch. Great to put it on the brainstem or in the webbing between the thumbs and the first finger, or the essential oil itself. You can diffuse it or breathe it right from the bottle to help with anxious moments, or the soft gels. Now, the supplement you need to know is a little different than the essential oil. You cannot just put this essential oil in a capsule and take it. It's not one of our internal oils. So you use the supplement. And any kind of mood help that you need, this is a really good one to go with. And I'm the mom of two teenagers, and I've just started one of my teenagers on it. And as the mom, I am taking it myself specifically for the challenges that we're experiencing. And I know a lot of us have a lot of stories about it, but I'd love to introduce Gabe Fugate because he's going to share a really powerful story with us today about his own Adaptiv experience. If you haven't met Gabe yet, he is also known as the inspirational rapper. His beats are so uplifting and inspiring. As someone who's always loved rap and hip hop music, it's so nice to have great positive lyrics. He's also a certified yoga instructor, a certified level 1 CrossFit instructor, certified in aroma touch, 14 years in sales, a blue diamond in doTERRA, and an amazing dad. So with that, we'll turn it over to you, Gabe.
Wow, thanks, Nikki. What an introduction. Well, I'm so happy to be here to share this story. And I just want to promise to you guys that, to all of you, that I'm going to try to do my best to be really authentic and transparent. So let's rewind back to, gosh, I think it was like 2014. I moved into my girlfriend's house in Southern Oregon. We've been dating long distance for a while, and her name was Erin, and Erin Ingraham. And so after living, I had been living in an apartment by myself, and so then I started living with my partner. And when you start living with a partner, you start to learn about them, and you start to learn about yourself, and things start to mesh. And we've started to learn that I really struggled with my mood. I would have, and I didn't really see it because I was living alone. But then once I started living with her, I could really start to see it. And Erin has had a lot of, to her credit, she's gone through a lot of therapy and work on her own stuff. So she is like a great resource for me at the time. So we started to notice that I was really up and down. Okay, I would have days, and it might last for a few days, where I was really up, things were great, I was feeling awesome, working out, eating lots of vegetables, feeling balanced and excited and happy, and life is good, right? And then I would like crash, and I'd be the complete opposite. I'd be like watching Netflix and eating junk food. And Erin was kind of like, yeah, you got to like put some oils on. And, and I was doing oils, and I was helping. I was like, I really liked wild orange and citrus bliss. I was putting those on. Those were great. And it would help a little bit, but it wasn't, I was still having these big swings. And Erin had, I think, went to something where Dr. Hill spoke and talked about the lifelong vitality pack. And she came back and she's like, you've got to get on the lifelong vitality pack. I can just see with what's going on with you that it's going to just, and I was pretty resistant, but she was like, I'll just buy it for you, and just let's see if it works, right? Of course, she knew that there's a money back guarantee, so it was no sweat off her back, right? So I started taking the Lifelong Vitality Pack, and within a few days, I noticed a couple things right away. One, I noticed my digestion started to like improve, and I noticed my mood really started to level out. The highs weren't as crazy, the lows weren't as damaging, right? I could still feel down, but not let it take me down, right? If that makes sense. And so I was like, great, we kind of solved this thing, and life kind of went on, and we ended up getting married. Um, and before I start talking about Adaptiv, I just want to read to you. I know Nikki said this already, but this is the part of the description of what Adaptiv is. First of all, it's a derivative of the word adapt, right? To adapt. And so it's helps to empower and encourage when adapting to difficult situations or acclimating to new surroundings. Okay. So adapting to difficult situations, I started having children. And if you've had children or have children, you know that it's a pretty stressful situation and a lot of things change, right? It's probably one of the most powerful, life-changing things that can happen to you. And so that happened. And then coronavirus happened. Talk about a new climate to adapt to, right? And so that hit. And then where we live, just near Medford in Oregon, we had the Alameda fire, which basically burnt down our town. So that happened, right? And here I am, Erin's, gosh, I can't remember, was Olivia born already before? Yeah, she was already born. She had just been born.
Like 2 months old when the fire came.
Right. So we've got a 2-month-old, we've got thanks, Erin, a 3-year-old, right? Or yeah, and Suzanne's laughing at me, even though she's muted.
We had some kids. We had some kids. We had a pandemic. We had a fire.
I can distinctly remember trying to, laying down with Emma at night and during the fires, and I could hear and feel the house shaking from explosions in the city from the fire, like propane tanks bursting and stuff like that. Like it was really intense. Thankfully, we were far enough away that we didn't have any danger as far as property damage or anything like that, or danger to our lives. But we lost our power, our well water. We're on well water, so our well pump only works when the power is working. So after a few days of no power, we ran out of water. So it was a very stressful situation. I won't go into it too much, but it was, extremely extremely stressful, on top of being in a pandemic, having these constraints about going in places and the fear of exposures and not seeing your community and touching people and hugging people, all of that. You all know, because you're all living through this right now. So that was happening. Fires happened. We woke up the next day, like my mom evacuated from, a mile away up to our house. And then the next morning we drove down to see if her house was still there, right? It was there. Some of our friends' houses weren't there. Whole neighborhoods were completely gone, just leveled, right? And the propane lines were still torching up, and people were walking around in their pajamas looking for their pets and stuff. Like it was really horrific. So that happened. And I started to feel like I was barely holding it together, right? You've ever felt that way? And so some more time went on. The pandemic continued to happen, as you all know. And I just started to get like, and I also, a backstory to this too, is that I just have struggled with sleep for quite a lot of my life. Like sleep is not so easy for me sometimes. It's hard for me to shut down my brain. And the more stressors that are happening and the more stuff that I hit the pillow at night and I'm thinking about, like a pandemic and fire in your city and having children and thinking about what kind of future are they going to have in this world, right? All of those things running through my brain at night, it gets harder and harder to get myself to fall asleep. And so that's where I got to. And I got to this place where I started to get really like, it's probably with anxiety, but how it manifests for me is I got really irritable, like angry, right? Like my daughter, you know, had food on her hands and I just put new, you know, fresh clothes on and, you know, touched me and I'd be like, oh gosh, this is the worst. Like I would just get really angry. And, you know, I didn't really have any outlet for it. I wasn't like, you know, it was just, it was just building inside of me, right? And it was visible, I'm sure. And I didn't, you know, me and Aaron consciously chose to have children in a way and raise our children in a way to try to break this cycle that we have had in our generations of abandonment and, you know, all kinds of stuff. And so we're really trying to give this generation that we're raising a better start. And that's what all parents want, right? And so I was starting to notice like, gosh, I'm not headed the right direction for what we have agreed on as parents. And so let's see, then, oh gosh, and then, so we're in this pandemic, right? And we're getting sick like a bunch. Like in this last year, I've been sick like 4 times, I think. And we're like, we've gotten COVID tests and I never, you know, we never tested positive for COVID. And, you know, we have our oldest daughter goes to a preschool, so we're getting whatever, you know, and it'll be like the baby gets sick and is throwing up. And we're like, oh my gosh. And then a couple days goes by and then the older girl gets sick and we're like, oh gosh, they're both sick. And then mom gets sick. And then the baby starts getting better. And then dad gets sick. And then the other, it's just like, you know, and this would happen, you're right, it's a cycle. And this would just keep happening. Like we'd finally, and then we'd be like, well, we want to be responsible. So we're going to, after everybody's done being sick, we're going to not see anybody for 2 weeks, right? Because we want to be, you know, we don't know. So we want to be safe. So then like 2 weeks go by and we're like cabin fever and there's wildfire smoke outside. We can't go outside. The air is toxic. You know, it's just like, oh my gosh. Then 2 weeks go by and then we're like, okay, maybe, you know, we can start seeing people again or whatever, go out. And then like the baby starts throwing up again. And we're like, oh my gosh, you know, is it going to do this whole thing again? And like, it's literally happened like that, like 4 times in the last year. And I started to get really wigged out. And Aaron, one time when we were sick, Aaron contacted our a friend who's a Chinese medicine doctor.
Mika.
What? Mika.
Mika.
She contacted Mika and like took pictures of our tongues and like sent them to Mika and was like, what do we do? Like, what's going on? And Mika was like, ask Gabe if he feels like he's crazy. And I was like, what? She doesn't know what she's talking about. Like, what kind of question is that? Right. And then Mika said, Gabe needs to take 3 Adaptiv a day. And I had taken Adaptiv before, like on occasion, to try to use it to help me with sleeping, which had helped sometimes. And I was like, 3 a day? Like when we first learned about Adaptiv, I was like, I don't know if I should be taking any GABA related stuff. I don't know what that's going to do to my brain, right? So I was a little bit hesitant. And then I started to learn more about it and I felt okay with it. But I started taking the 3 Adaptiv a day. And at first everything got worse, right? Aaron, it was like, I got like really agitated and then after a few days, it started to just calm down. And I have been much more stable with my mood and emotions since taking that Adaptiv. And it's been probably 2 months and I'm still taking 3 a day. And I take them in the day. And I feel like having my stress levels under control throughout the day helps me get to my pillow at night and be a little bit easier to go to sleep. So it's been like pretty amazing, just because we are in such a mental health crisis right now. And the thing we need so much is community and connection. And it's the thing that everybody in the government and everything is telling us it's not safe. So be careful. So it's really a tough time. And it just feel like, everybody's wigged out, right, on this pandemic and what's happening to our world, and things are changing. It's really dynamic. So we really need to be very careful about our health, our mental health. And I can't really imagine what I would be like if I hadn't have started. Thank you to Mika, for suggesting that. And will I continue to take Adaptiv 3 times a day? Probably, until I feel like I've acclimated to what's happening, which might never happen. So, it is what it is. But I'm really grateful. It's really been powerful. And I don't know what else to say.
Couple questions that are coming up, Gabe.
Yeah. And of
One-
course, hold on. I just want to say really quick, a big part of what I do is I use the oil too, the Adaptiv oil. I diffuse it at night. Adaptiv and Citrus Bliss together is like my power combo, those 2 oils. And I put it in my hair, like every day, basically, like 4 or 5 drops of each, like a heavy dose in my hair. I really like it. So anyways, yeah, I would love to hear some questions.
So one question is, what time of day do you take them? And do you take all 3 at the same time?
Great question. I take them throughout the day, one at a time. So I basically with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, more or less.
Sandra, your mom, wants to point out that you were super consistent with LLV and using your oils.
Mm-hmm.
And it was adding the Adaptiv that made a huge difference.
Yes. Yeah. I'm like the supplement person in the house. I make everybody take their supplements every day. So I'm
so good at it.
I'm
and
on
then
it.
Dr. Josie is saying she wants to make sure everyone heard that you felt worse for a few days. It's important to stay the course for a few days of upheaval, if it is in the safe zone of upheaval. So as your wife, I will say, those few days were really intense. It was way worse than before the Adaptiv, but I could tell that it was a cleanse. So just like we cleanse our gut, sometimes it's like the Adaptiv cleansed some stuck emotions or something. What did you feel, honey?
Yeah, it felt like a detox of emotions. And I would strongly encourage, if that's an issue and that's happening, even if it's not, I would strongly encourage doing this under the guidance of your practitioner or health professional, or especially even seeking out some therapy, and having a counselor or someone to talk to is very important for everybody, I think. Even if you don't feel like you need it, it's always great to have someone to talk to about what you're going through. And I will say I've been using some therapy and some counseling through this time as well, and it's been really helpful.
We have a few more minutes. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Nikki Dean.
Thank you for sharing your story, Gabe. It's so powerful to hear what other people, how other people's experiences and what you go through. And I just wanted to share a really powerful Adaptiv experience that someone on my team had. And right after it came out, she just ordered it. I hadn't even spoken to her yet. She just saw it and said, "That's for me." And she got it. And after 1 month of, she did the whole system. She was using the roller touch. She carried that essential oil with her everywhere, and she was taking the supplement. And after 1 month, she went to her doctor and said, "I want to start weaning off my anti-anxiety and antidepressant medication that I've been on for 10 years. And then she sent me a picture of her hands. She had had some trauma as a child, some pretty big stuff, and she's bitten her nails her whole entire life. She's in her 50s now. Since she's 3 years old, she's been biting her nails. And for the first time in her life, she was able to get a manicure. Taking Adaptiv allowed her to stop biting her nails because it was just one of those nervous habits. So it's so powerful what this oil and the system can do for people.
Wow, yeah.
And let's remember that people can get Adaptiv Touch for free in the BOGO box. Plus they're going to get the Copaiba and whatnot. Anyone else? We have a few more minutes. Any stories or questions?
I'll jump in. Lindsay here in Vancouver, Washington. And the thing that always amazes me is the divine timing. I have the high connectedness element and that synchronicity of what pulls together. And Adaptiv came out for us right before the pandemic. And in fact, in my household, we were already going through our own kind of mini different lockdown because, as many of you know, my husband had broken his leg in 2 places, like clean through. He was zero weight bearing on crutches for 6 months. And when you go from, I don't know if you've been through the situation, but if you have been leaning on Western meds and kind of that mental mood stabilizer, even a very micro dose, usually you would want to wean off of it slowly. But in the context of something like adding in pain meds to deal with a broken leg clean through in 2 places, there's this element of like, oh, shoot, we can't take the mental health meds with the pain meds because there's a risk of your heart stopping. So they made him go cold turkey on all the mental health stability in favor of narcotics. And if you know anything about narcotics, there can be some mental health elements that come up there too. So I totally relate to the crazy factor, Gabe. Thankfully, you know, my husband's an amazing person, but he's been through trauma, he's had challenges. So you destabilize the system like that, and it gets down spirals really fast. So by the time I got home from convention and had this new little kit called the mental health blend, I was like, okay, well, we're putting it to the test here because we really need something. And he was already on, you know, Copaiba and all the other great stuff. So we started him on Adaptiv. And within maybe 30 minutes of the first dose, like I could see the energy start to shift. Like it just went up like one little notch. And like 3 days in, I was thinking, wow, like I'm starting to get my partner back. Like he's more himself. And I thought, well, like maybe some of this is healing. He actually used the turmeric duo caps that are featured today. I actually have them right in front of me here because I'm going to be doing a Facebook Live about these. But these plus the Copaiba supported him in getting off the narcotic pain meds because he had something natural to use instead. And it wasn't that we're like going cold turkey, but we weaned off, we had something available. So I thought, well, maybe the narcotics coming out of his system, like he's stabilizing that way. So we used up an entire bottle of Adaptiv because the one thing I will say is there's only 30 supplements in here. So we went through in like 2 weeks because he was taking 2 a day. And I hadn't ordered more yet. And so we ran out, and it maybe lasted like a day or two, the benefit, and then his mood started down spiraling. And I was like, oh no, like who has Adaptiv? I need it stat. And we ran out a couple of times, and I promised myself I'm never running out of Adaptiv capsules because they're needed in this household. So we actually keep a back stock. I highly recommend stocking up and having what you need available. Kind of pro tip there. And same thing, the turmeric capsules have been really, really helpful. Also, if you're thinking like, okay, great, I'm going to get Adaptiv for my spouse because they obviously need it. My health is fine. Yeah, it actually, I was so busy giving him our Adaptiv stash, I didn't even think to deal with my own stress. So this last year, I finally started taking Adaptiv. I was like, wait a second, why have I been giving these to you? I could have handled the stress. So definitely Adaptiv for the whole family is long and the short of the story. Order it in bulk. You don't want to run out.
Thanks, Lindsay. Let's all give Gabe just big gratitude and lots of love. I know it's hard to sometimes be vulnerable like that. We appreciate you, honey. Would you in the chat please give everybody your full regime? It's being asked and I need to move on.
Absolutely. Yeah.